Welcome to the back side of the 3.3 notes. The front side looks like this. The back side looks like this. So make sure you watch the first part, and then we're going to move on to the second part. Okay, we should have done the first part during class, and this is your homework for that night if we didn't get to them. So when you are doing domain and range from an equation, remember that domain is all of your possible x values, range is all your possible y values. We're only going to do domain if there's not a graph. And this was left to right on the graph. So you could just look and see, hey, here's how far to the left it goes. Hey, here's how far to the right it goes. Awesome. Here's a way you can tell from an equation. First of all, most equations start off as negative infinity to infinity, until we start throwing weird things with special rules in there. Okay, this is what it means by most of the time you can plug in any value. Okay, any value means anything between negative infinity to infinity. But there are two specific rules we need to follow. They are the weird ones where you're not allowed to do certain things in math. So the first rule is that you are not allowed to divide by 0. Okay, if you took 4 cookies and divided them between 0 people, then that's not possible. At least somebody has to get all 4 of the cookies. You can divide between 1 person, or 2 people, or 3 people, or 4 people, or more, but not 0. So when you're finding the domain of a function that has a fraction, remember that fractions just mean division. You have to be careful and say that whatever's in the denominator cannot equal 0. So for example, on this first one, just the bottom part is 2x minus 10. And that's not allowed to equal 0. And to say not equal, we draw an equal sign with a little slash through it like this. Okay? Then we have to figure out or solve this for what value of x would make that bottom part 0. And you can kind of do this in your head too, or you can solve it like a regular equation. Add 10 to the other side and divide by 2. Ten divided by 2 is 5. So x cannot equal 5. That's your domain, guys. So everything else is fine. It would be this, except for our one rule, which tells us x can't be 5. So you can plug in any number you want except 5. You can plug in 4.5. You can plug in 5.5. But you can't plug in exactly 5. Okay? And then this part is old. This is old news. I've been throwing this in though. This is f of 4, meaning go plug in 4 for x and find y. So I'm going to plug it into the equation. And I'm just going to keep reminding you guys that that's all that this does. Now, because this is a fraction, we have to do the bottom part first. You can't type this all in one step into your calculator. So I'm going to do the 2 times 4 minus 10. 2 times 4 minus 10. Negative 2. So really this is 8 over a negative 2. And what's 8 divided by negative 2? Negative 4. Okay, same type of thing over here on the right, except for the bottom part is 3x minus 12 this time. So 3x minus 12 is not allowed to equal 0. So we find out what would make it equal to 0, and we say x can't be that number. So I'm going to add the 12 to the other side. I guess I should write that for you. 0 plus 12 is 12. Then divide by 3 on both sides. And 12 divided by 3 is 4. These 3's cancel. So x can't be 4. because 3 times 4 is 12, and 12 minus 12 would be 0. That's what would make this impossible. Okay, then it gives you -3 for x, and you want to plug it in. Notice how there's two x's here and here, so you want to make sure that you plug it into both. Okay, so on the top, it's -3 plus 3, 0. It is okay if 0 is on the top of the fraction, but not the bottom. Here's how I remember that. No, that's not okay. But this is okay. Not on the bottom, okay on the top. Because then this is -21. And what's 0 divided by -21? 0. Right? If the 0 was on bottom, this is what would happen. Okay, so if it was backwards, if this was upside down, it would give you an error, and it would say you can't divide by 0. Okay? So if you're not sure, try it in a calculator, and if it works, then that's your answer, and if it doesn't, then that means that that was not okay. All right, so square roots. You can't take the square root of a negative number. Okay, so like the square root of -4, let's say. If I go try to do that square root in my calculator, domain error. Guess what? That's a domain error because negatives aren't in the domain. That's why this is called domain. If you've ever seen that in your calculator, that's what it's referring to. Domain is all the possible x values, and if you type in an x value that's not part of the graph, then it's not going to work, and it's going to give you a domain error. So what we're going to do for this one is whatever is inside the square root, you need to say that it's greater than or equal to 0. Okay, because this is the same thing as saying that it has to be positive. Okay, so for this first one, 4x minus 12 is greater than or equal to 0. So it's kind of like saying this one, doing this one, but we said it wasn't able to equal 0 because you can't divide by 0. Now we're saying it can be anything 0 or bigger, but it can't be negative. Okay? So same idea, we're going to add the 12 to the other side. 0 plus 12 is 12. And then we're going to divide by 4. X is greater than or equal to 3. So you could plug in 4, 5, 6, 7, but not 2. Because if I plug in 2, 4 times 2 would be 8. 8 minus 12 is a negative. So this is just telling you which numbers are okay. 3 and anything bigger. Then it tells you to plug in f of 4 again. So we're going to plug 4 into this equation. It's already plugged into on this side for you. That's what this is. So you only have to worry about this side. And I didn't say that on the last one. I don't know if that's confusing anybody still. So 4 times 4 minus 12 is 4. And now we need to figure out how to do the square root of 4, if you don't already know what it is. So basically we're asking ourselves, what number times itself equals 4? That's what the square root means. Well, hopefully some of you know that 2 times 2 equals 4. So that would be your answer. But if you don't know that, you can always hit the second button, which is a different color, and then the x squared button. And it works the same way on the graphing calculators that you guys have on your Chromebook. Just go to the bottom left. Hey, over here, what's inside the square root? And then you're going to subtract that 7 to the other side. So we end up with x is greater than or equal to negative 7. So it's okay to plug in a negative number, like negative 7, because negative 7 plus 7 is 0. You can take the square root of 0. Or you can plug in negative 5. Negative 5 plus 2 is negative 2. Or sorry, 2 is 2. You can take the square root of 2. It's going to be a decimal, but you can still do it. So now we have the square root of negative 3. So plus 7. Sorry, forgot to say the plus 7. So we're plugging this in for x plus 7. And a lot of people ask me, but this isn't okay, you have a negative. It is okay because once you combine those together, negative 3 plus 7 is 4. And we already found out over here that the square root of 4 was 2.